All right, welcome back to Humans of Grappling, where we explore the intersection of grappling and everything else in life. We talk about applying grappling to everyday life and everyday life to grappling. We're here today with Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and gym owner of Victory Submission Grappling, Matt Guffey. He's also a strength coach, Jiu-Jitsu content creator, and host of Thanks for the Roll podcast. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Awesome. So, I guess you reached out to me and saying that you're also a fellow eco CLA bro.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so what's that been like?
Well, um, I guess I should start with, uh, I used to coach hockey for USA Hockey.
Oh, okay.
I coached for the Junior Sharks here in San Jose, and
Uh-huh.
the Junior Sharks are they call them it's an ADM club, so American Development Model is what they've kind of dubbed it.
Mm-hmm.
And ADM clubs are kind of at the forefront of this, like, I guess, ecological dynamics, but for hockey.
Sure. Okay.
Nobody calls it eco, nobody calls it CLA in hockey. They just call it
Uh,
the ADM.
ADM. Okay. Interesting.
And that's a result of, USA Hockey for a long time was known for being, well, I guess, players who were brought up in the USA Hockey system were known for being kind of low skill, just high energy guys, go out there, hit, bang, fight, do the, the dirty work, so to speak. And USA Hockey wanted to
Mm-hmm.
change that. And so they did a lot of research and they started to study other countries and how they're doing things, and started to study, athletic development and skill acquisition and or skill
Mm-hmm.
adaptation, as I know a lot of eco bros like to say. So um, they did a lot of the research and they started this maybe 15 years ago, and
Wow. Yeah.
it was met initially with a lot of the pushback that you're seeing in jiu-jitsu right now,
Right.
with the traditional method. And a lot of coaches, were, I think, threatened by it. And for what it's worth, those coaches in hockey are extinct now. They don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
USA Hockey has made huge gains, and I came in at kind of the tail end of it. I coached for the Sharks for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess not the tail end. I maybe entered it kind of right in the middle of the transition.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how USA Hockey was teaching us how to coach.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything that they were talking about. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this makes sense.
Right.
Want to build skills, we got to actually play the game.
Right. Exactly.
Break it down into into something that's more digestible, or build games that force skills rather than try to mimic, or just there's static drilling where you're just passing back and forth with a static partner or whatever, and that just
Right.
frankly doesn't happen in the game.
Sure. Right.
And
you're
so,
you're always going one direct. You're always going
right,
towards the goal, right? Versus whatever. Like you're always going towards a direction. Like you have a literal goal that you're
yeah,
trying to score into. So
yeah.
yeah.
And so that was really where the seed was planted, and I didn't know it at the time. And I was fortunate enough to be picked by USA Hockey to go to their headquarters in Colorado
Mm-hmm.
Springs every summer and
Mm-hmm.
learn from a lot of the best coaches that they have in their organization. And this was it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'd come back and learn and coach and tweak things. And um, over time it just became second nature. And then after I left the Sharks and I started the strength and conditioning gym, uh, several years after that had been, you know, around,
Mm-hmm.
one of my good buddies, training partners, Josh Beam, for those of you listening, I'm sure you've probably seen his stuff on.
He's big on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, he's big on the internet. So Josh has been my main training partner for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when Josh left CTA, he had gotten injured, and a local black belt, he had put something out on the internet like, well, how am I going to learn jiu-jitsu? I don't coach. I'm kind of floating around. I don't quite know like where I'm supposed to go. And
Mm-hmm.
this local black belt reached out to him and said, "Hey, you should look into this CLA stuff
Mm.
and see kind of what that does for you." And as he started to read a lot of the literature, he started to read how we learn to move, and how to become an ecological coach,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And he would mention things to me, be like, what do you think about this? And I'd be like, that's USA hockey. That's all we do.
Right.
And he'd be like, okay. And then he'd, say something else. Well, what about this? And I'm like, verbatim USA hockey. And then I start to think, and I'm like, oh my goodness, am I backwards right now? Am I like, I didn't even think that it could be applied outside
Mm.
of that context. And
Oh,
so
interesting, huh?
once he kind of brought that to my attention, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm missing out on something. There's
Right.
more to this. And
Yeah.
so he and I started to mess around and start to build some games and play around with the ideas. And once I did that, I couldn't go back, and
Yeah.
I was hooked. I was like, this makes so much sense now. It's
Hmm.
everything that they taught us to do as coaches. It's everything that we preached to the players that we were working with on the ice. And as an aside, the hockey players in the United States now are on par with the best in the world. I mean, they're seriously 1-1A with Canada. In the recent Four Nations Cup, they went to overtime, with Canada, and a lot of the best goal scorers in the world are American born now, and it's
Mm.
because of this system, and it's something that I've seen over the course of a very long time. So now that I see it entering jiu-jitsu, I'm number one ecstatic because it's the way.
Sure.
But number two, I know that it's going to be a long road based on what I've seen in other sports.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you saw it. Like, this is like a double take for you. It's
Yeah.
like you're reading the same story again of like this new methodology gets introduced, people that have resistance to it, and I've seen it like in my own gym of like some people just don't like it. They want to be told what to do, or they want to have, I don't know,
Yeah.
they have some sense of like, this is the tradition, this is how everyone does it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, me being like a software guy, I like have this kind of, I don't know, like, why? Like, I need to know why. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do we do these things? And
Yeah.
if there isn't a good reason, and I've read actual books like, yeah, how we learn to move and stuff of hey, these are good reasons for moving to CLA type of approach. Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
100%.
And I'm a huge believer, as you've seen,
Yeah.
and my content recently is just, yeah, all games, all the stuff that I'm playing in class. So yeah, that's dope. So I guess, how um do you use CLA in your strength and conditioning at all,
That's a good
or is it
question. I mean,
because strength and conditioning people have this idea of form or technique or whatever, and cues and all that kind of stuff. So I guess, how do you see that, the
yeah.
interaction?
Well, that's a great question
Yeah.
because yeah, you're right. In the strength and conditioning world, there's this like really rigid structure, so to speak, that
Mm.
people want to push. I'm of the belief that everybody's going to move a little bit differently. Your
Hmm.
squat's going to look different than mine.
Yep.
Your anatomy is different than mine.
Right.
So there's no sense in me trying to make you look exactly like the way I do it,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
Are you moving the weight? Are you doing it in a way that's safe, right?
Hmm.
Are we managing the load the right way?
Hmm.
And are we getting the adaptation that we're looking for? And if those things are being met, then I don't see a problem with hinging at your hips a little bit more than I do based on the length of your femur.
Yeah,
So
for
we
sure.
do try to keep that in mind as we're coaching people.
Hmm.
The second way is through we use constraints all the time. If I want somebody to get into a certain position,
Hmm.
it's way more powerful for me to put constraints around it and say, okay, well, like, your knee can't touch this block.
Literal constraints,
Yeah,
like,
literal
you're
constraints. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
your knee can't touch this block. Get there. And then they'll
Yeah.
figure it out. They figure out how to position themselves so that they can, get the adaptation. And I think that's something that we're constantly thinking of. There's also the concept of like, well, it's not random practice, but we're trying to change things up just a little bit every time,
Yeah,
right?
variability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so like if we do plyos, maybe we do plyos on turf. Maybe sometimes we do plyos on the rubber. Maybe
Hmm.
sometimes we do plyos on a mat or whatever. Like it's giving you a
Sure.
little bit different stimulus every time,
Hmm.
so that you can build a more well-rounded profile.
Sure.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been, at least for my own like strength and conditioning training. Like I just have a garage in my gym, or gym in my garage, sorry, and
yeah.
and just weights and stuff. And I used to be like a super stickler for technique of back in the day in college. Like I actually kind of wrote a my master's thesis was I was trying to track. I put like a sensor on the end of a barbell.
Hmm.
I was trying to track technique
Okay.
through like people's um, squats and bench press, and it didn't really work out too well. Like I was using like machine learning to try to figure out all the data points, and like I was kind of eyeball testing, saying, all right, that rep was good, that rep was bad with this fault or whatever. But now I'm like, well, as long as it doesn't hurt, like,
Yeah,
and we're loading appropriately, it's
yeah.
probably okay.
Hundred
Like
percent.
yeah,
Hundred
that,
percent.
yeah.
That's cool.
So it's not like it may, because of course, like reps at like a higher load aren't going to look as pretty as if you're using a dowel or whatever, right? So you kind of have to, I don't know, adjust your standards
100%.
to the person in front of you.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
that's
I mean,
dope.
we try to take a real nuanced approach to training each athlete. So that's, yeah, it's spot on.
That's cool. And I guess, yeah, so I noticed like you have, what's big now is like strength and conditioning for grapplers, and like I've seen you put out some content around that. I guess what is the main thing that you keep in mind if you are training grapplers?
I mean, load management's the biggest piece, I think.
Yeah.
Almost no education on that
Yep.
for grapplers.
Yes.
Strength training for or strength training in jiu-jitsu is decades behind.
Of course.
Oh, I have the luxury, like with CLA, of having come from a big budget sport where, you know, these teams, the NHL teams pump, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars into keeping their assets healthy. And so you see what they go through,
Hmm.
to help support those athletes from a strength and conditioning standpoint. And jujitsu just doesn't have that. That
Right.
just doesn't exist.
Yep.
And so that's one of our missions, is just to bring that information to as many jiu-jitsu athletes as we possibly can.
Hmm.
And part of that is managing load. And most of our athletes train jiu-jitsu 5-6 days a week. A
Yep.
lot of them compete.
Hmm.
And there's also this maybe underlying thought that you need to also be lifting weights 5 days a week to make any
Right.
progress, and it just
Sure.
frankly isn't true.
Right.
1 to 3 days a week and you can still make progress. So
Hmm.
depending on your schedule, depending on your overall level of energy,
Hmm.
that may change from month to month, week to week, day to day. And that's something that we try to teach our people, not just the people who come train with us, but those just in the community at large.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that as long as it's well structured and you're
Hmm.
and you're taking into account load management, you can make really good progress on 2 days a week, in more than one area, be it speed, power, strength, conditioning, all that stuff.
For sure. Yeah. No, and that's just a terrible jujitsu culture, is like more is more. Like just hashtag grind set, like where like
Yeah, it's got to hurt
it's
to
got
to
it's
work.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and the key component is rest in
Yeah.
all of this, right?
Yeah.
Like just days off, allowing your body to recover. Because
Yeah.
what's the point of like, yeah, running yourself into the ground? I'm guilty
Same.
of doing that. Yeah.
Same. Myself, my athletes. Yeah, I've done
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like I always get sick around competition time. Like it's just so much, like stress is just, we only have so much capability for tolerating stress, and then our
Yeah.
body starts to just fail us, break down, and demand rest on,
100%.
on its own schedule. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably the, like, as far as Jiu-Jitsu specific strength training or strength
Yeah.
training for grapplers, that's probably
Right.
the most pertinent part of it
Hmm.
is the load management piece.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's push, pull, hinge, squat, carry, lunge, you know, movements over muscles and or muscle groups rather. Uh, you know, that's it's very basic. I say basic not to diminish
Hmm.
the quality or the importance of it. Maybe fundamental is a better
Sure.
way to put it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you don't need to attach bands to your legs and do banded guard retention drills or whatever.
Or
Like it's
shots
or
or whatever.
shots or any of
Yeah.
that. Like it's
Yeah.
you just need to get strong, fast, mobile, and if you
Hmm.
do those things, the athleticism will translate, and that's what we try to harp on when we're teaching.
For sure. Yeah. Like there's all kinds of like inside baseball stuff for like strength and conditioning stuff. Like every all if you just looked at strength and conditioning Instagram, you're going to see 100 different trainers doing 100 different things. But the principles are just you got to add a little bit of weight each time. You have to increase the load a little bit each time. And
Right.
that's it. That's all
Right.
strength training
Yep.
is is adding a little bit and getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
And like that, at least with strength training, that's at least measurable.
Yeah.
Like you can actually like write in my I write in my logbook of like, all right, I have like these micro plates, so like I just kind of increase, okay, I can do half a pound each time and it progressively overload.
Yeah.
So
And that's one thing that is maybe overlooked in the jiu-jitsu community is like you cannot Alex Sterner, I don't know if you follow him at all. Alex Sterner's got a
mm,
lot of really good stuff on this.
uh-huh.
He owns Electrum Performance in San Diego. So yeah. So Alex is brilliant in my opinion. And he does a lot of stuff on this, but there's nowhere else where you can control as many variables as we can in the gym, right? You can't possibly know who's going to show up to class, who's going to be, hopped up on pre,
Yeah.
who's going to jump a certain way or move a certain way or push you a certain way. Like you
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's so variable.
Hmm.
It would be impossible to scale intensity like we can in the gym,
Yep.
in the weight room rather. And
Right.
so that's a critical component to this whole thing is whenever somebody comes in with a bump, a bruise, an injury or whatever, sometimes they'll be like, hey, I hurt my knee, I can't come in. It's like, you should come in, you should
Hmm.
still come in because we can work around it.
Right.
And like I said, this is the only place where we can control everything. We can control
Hmm.
time under tension. We can control the intensity. We can control the range of motion. We can control like so many different variables that
Hmm.
I think are important when it comes to not just keeping grapplers healthy, but also like rehabilitating grapplers or whether that's post surgical or post PT or whatever it is. So
Right.
I'm always encouraging people, even if you're hurt, even if you're injured, still come in, do something. We can change it. We can make it work for you,
Hmm.
and that has yielded really really good results.
That's dope. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's interesting that you talk about, yeah, post surgical and post PT. And the PTs vary. Like
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like they may just be used to rehabbing old ladies who broke their hip or whatever. And then they just give you like
Yeah,
5 sets of banded stuff and you're done. Like
yeah,
you need to like really make sure the PT understands like your demands,
yeah,
demands of jiu-jitsu, or they come see you and you know the demands of jiu-jitsu and
right,
what
yeah,
they need to build back up to.
yeah. Well, a great resource for that, as far as understanding the demands of jiu-jitsu from a physical therapy perspective. Dr. Kickass
Oh yeah. Yep.
on Instagram is
He's
great.
dope.
Open Mat Physio,
Hmm.
Diana Wang, she's great.
Right.
There's a lot of good information out there. So for those of you listening, and if you find yourself in a situation where you need it, those are some good resources to look for.
It's awesome. Sweet. Yeah. So I guess getting off the strength and conditioning train a little bit, how do you structure your jiu-jitsu classes, like your CLA approach? What are the things that you yeah, what does a typical class look like, I guess?
So right now we are something of a collective.
Hmm.
I can maybe barely call us an academy. We're like
Okay.
we're IBJJF legal.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
we're like we're set up and everything, but
Yeah.
we don't have a physical location. Josh
Mm.
and I run all of our training sessions,
Hmm.
and it's right now based mostly on our competition experiences.
Hmm.
So if one of he and I compete roughly once a month,
Hmm.
and if something pops up, we're like, hey, this guy got me here, or I struggled with this or whatever. We'll
Hmm.
start to play around with games on our own, and then
Hmm.
bring that to the training room when other people are there, so that we can get different looks and we can see how people react in certain situations. So that is the long and short of it, kind of how we go about building a plan.
Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, because of course, like whenever you get caught with something in competition, it hurts. It's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
very like that. That's a key signal of like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I don't know
Yep.
this as well as I thought I did.
Yep.
So yeah,
100%.
that's definitely yeah. I've you always learn the most from your losses,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a big glaring hole of like, oh shit, I need to work on this
Yeah.
particular thing. So
And that's not to say that we won't like cater to the other people who train with us. We ask
yeah.
them, we'll say, hey, what are you guys working on? What's coming up for you and your roles? Like,
Hmm.
let us know and we'll build stuff for you. And we can find a way to work it in. If I'm
Hmm.
talking on more of a, I guess, macro scale, like, Greg Souders
Hmm.
teaches,
Yeah.
play the whole game every day. So we
Sure.
do something stand up, something passing or guarded, something pinning, some kind of submission.
Hmm.
And if we can get all of those in a day, then we're happy. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. I think Greg, eco or not, like I think his way of
yes.
like structuring class
Mm-hmm.
like that's huge too. Is like people do like the traditional method is like, okay, they start with like I was taught in threads of like, oh, this is the
Mm-hmm.
whatever the we're gonna take it from. I mean, if we're lucky, standing all the way to a submission, standing guard, whatever. But at the same time, giving us like experience in these potentially disparate things. Like we don't have to have a clean through line or whatever. It could just be like something, I don't know, basic from standing, and then okay, let's just say we get to guard somehow, and then we
Mm-hmm.
do, because it's variable every time. Like
Yeah.
it's a different case, and it's you're not going to hit move of the day, you're not going to hit sequence of the day perfectly.
Right.
So why be like
Right.
structure? Why be stuck to that type of
Yeah. And
thinking?
when we were at CTA, that's kind of where things were starting to go, is like, here's the move, and here's a reaction to that, and here's what you
Hmm.
do for that, and then here's the
Yeah.
reaction for that, and here's what you do for that. So you might have 3 or 4 moves, so to speak, in a day.
Hmm.
Well, my biggest, probably the biggest hurdle that I've had to overcome in competition is, from pretty much from white until I got my brown belt, I if I was ever in a competition and something popped up that I didn't recognize,
Hmm.
I would freeze. I'd be like, "That's
Mm.
not the right reaction. You're not
Yeah.
supposed to do that."
Right. you're,
Like,
you're not allowed to do
yeah, yeah, that's
that.
not right. That's not the best reaction. And
Yeah. Right.
to the instructors at CTA's credit, they're thinking, if you're playing the best person you could be playing, this is probably the best reaction for them. So this is what you should prepare yourself for, the best react. But we all know that it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
People
Exactly.
react differently every time based on the school they go to, body size, physicality, whatever.
Hmm.
And even the quote wrong reaction will get you if you're not ready for it.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so, that was really the biggest hurdle that I've had to come over, and I that I had to get over. And I feel I'm finally, like, now I'm in my third year of my brown belt.
Hmm.
I'm just now starting to learn to be creative on the fly.
There you go.
And that's something that I'm very proud of, and it's something
Yeah.
that, I see it happening from competition to competition. I'm doing things that I never would have done before. I'm finding myself thinking through things in a more creative way than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
I still get caught, but I don't feel stuck.
Right.
I don't say to myself, well, I don't know what to do here. I know what my goal is, and I'm going to try something. It might not work, but I have a better understanding of where I need to be going,
For
and
sure.
however I can make that happen, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. And always having, yeah, a direction of
yeah,
like, yeah, you could be in the craziest whatever in leg entanglement or whatever. It's like, okay, if I if his feet are on me, I need to get them off of me
yeah,
first. And then like you can kind of piece your way together
yeah,
towards some kind of like better positioning for
yeah,
yourself.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
tell me what, not how.
yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. What do I need to do rather than yeah how to do it?
You're
That
right.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um. Okay. So yeah. So it sounds like yeah CTA is yeah pretty old school. Kyle like whatever dozen-time world champion
yeah,
whatever very good guy
yeah,
like but still like he like old school makes you guys drill all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. And like my assessment, I guess, as a now a third party, like I'm no longer a part of that
yeah
school.
sure.
You know, guys like that intuited this. Like they intuited this, and
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe they did drill here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but when, or maybe they drilled a lot. I don't know. You know, I this Kaio's story is he had a disagreement with his instructor. He went home, knocked out the walls, put mats all throughout his house, invited people over, and they
uh
trained and they
yeah
rolled and they learned
yeah
and they figured stuff out.
yeah
You know,
right.
that's how he got good.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, people like that intuit this approach,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's so maddening when somebody puts actual science behind it, or like, this is why it works, and they're
Right.
like, nope, it doesn't work, and you're like,
yeah.
dude, you did
Yeah.
it though.
Yeah, right.
You don't
Yeah,
even know it.
that's a yeah, that's a crazy thing because it's like, yeah, why like you're gonna get good if you lock two people in a room and 2 3 years Dagestan and forget. Like if you
Yeah,
just lock somebody two people in a room, they'll figure jujitsu out.
yeah,
They'll like lock them away for a year, no phone, no internet, no Danaher instructionals. They'll get pretty good.
yeah,
I would and like sounds like that's what Kaio did, and look where that got him.
mm-hmm.
So it yeah, it's interesting that I think we have I don't know. This is my pet theory is like we have a hero worship problem. It's like oh these techniques are passed down on high from the heroes of the sport. So if they do it, then if
Yeah,
they do it this way, all these 10 little details, then we have to do it that way
right,
because they are so much closer to Helio than we are,
right,
right?
yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah. But you know, like if I'm gonna bring it back to hockey, which is, you know, is my background, some of the kids that I coached, dude, they did stuff that I couldn't even dream of.
mm,
They were so skilled. I mean, some of those guys, a lot of them were playing college hockey, Division 1 hockey, some of them pro hockey,
mm-hmm.
and you see some of the stuff that they would pull off. You're like, I couldn't possibly teach you that. I couldn't teach you
right.
that. I don't
Yeah.
even know it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
but it's a direct result of putting them in scenarios where they have to come up with solutions that are creative, and it's truly something else, man. I really wish that I could show the rest of the jiu-jitsu world what I've seen happen in a, you
Yeah.
know, in another sport, a very
Right.
complex
Yeah.
physical sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And what the that was the frustrating thing with I mean, it's always frustrating listening to the arguments of like, yeah, like
mhm,
Big Dan versus Souders and thinking that all these other sports are somehow less technical or
right,
whatever than jiu-jitsu. It's like no, like it we're still doing stuff with our body.
right,
Like it's all highly technical at the highest level.
hmm,
The difference between winning and losing is all like inches or
yeah,
millimeters or
yeah,
whatever, right?
it's very very thin.
So yeah, like if you're skating down the rink at I don't know how fast you go, 20 miles an hour, 30
Yeah.
miles an hour,
20
pretty,
something.
pretty,
Yeah.
pretty, pretty fucking fast,
Yeah.
trying to track this little puck around,
Yeah.
and you're trying to literally skate to where the puck is going. Not just the phrase, but like
Yeah.
you're actually trying to
Yeah.
calculate on the
Yeah.
fly,
Yeah.
problem solve where this puck is like bouncing around. Like I've only seen one hockey, well, actually one hockey game as an adult. It was the Stanley Cup Finals, game one
Okay.
here, VGK
I was,
VGK.
yeah. I was there
Uh,
for game 5. I'm a Caps
uh,
fan, so
okay.
so
Like it was completely on a whim. Like we're like, I
yeah.
was on a bachelor party trip
Nice.
with my buddies. They were in town, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to go see the
Sick.
Stanley Cup?" And we're like, "All right, sure." Like standing room only
Yeah.
seats, but like
Uh-huh.
that. It was amazing. It was just struck me of how, like, yeah, it's a crazy, I don't know, it's a crazy sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they're training like this to get to the highest level like that's just indicates, hey, maybe we should look into this a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. One of my last summers with USA Hockey, again, before I ever knew what it is they were doing, and I reached out to one of my coaches,
Mm-hmm.
mentors who with USA Hockey recently, and I was like, "Hey, man, I just want to say I've started reading all this stuff. I understand now. I totally get what you guys were trying to
Yeah.
teach us.
Right.
It makes so much sense."
Uh-huh.
So one of the we talk about uh, just time under tension, right? Whether it's strength and conditioning or in the training room,
Mm-hmm.
right? The more reps you're able to get, the better you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get at this thing. The more live reps, right? And in hockey, it's puck touches. So the more the
Mm.
puck's on your stick, the more skilled
Uh-huh.
you're going to be with the puck, right? That's the
Sure.
that's the logic.
Yep.
So what they did, there used to be a rule in youth hockey where it applies at the pro level, but it doesn't make sense at the youth level. But the rule is delayed offside. So that just means if your players are in the offensive zone and the puck comes out of the zone, that blue line that delineates the offensive zone from the neutral zone, and then the puck goes back into the offensive zone, everybody has to come out before they go back in, which means you essentially give up possession of the puck, right? Because if the puck comes out, you send it back in. All 5 of your players have to be out before they can come back in. But while that's happening, the other team is picking up the puck and they're going the other way,
Sure. Yeah.
right? At the highest levels, you can get away with that, and there's reason to believe that that's like there's a tactical reason that you might do that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the lower levels, where you're trying to build skills, you
Mm-hmm.
want the puck on their stick.
Yeah.
And so what
Right.
the last summer I was there, they were like, "Hey, we're going to change the rule. There's no more delayed offsides. If somebody commits that, if they do that,
Mm-hmm.
then whistle blows, plays dead. It goes into the defensive zone of the offending team, and
Mm-hmm.
they have to now fight for a puck in front of their own net to
Mm.
try to discourage them from doing that."
I see.
And the first couple games, the kids super frustrated. They're like, "What?" They were all upset.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, they keep blowing the whistle, and we're like,
Right.
"I don't know. Okay, let's see what happens." And sure
Mm-hmm.
enough, game 3, 4, 5, and beyond,
Mm-hmm.
kids get the puck. They'd see their player in the offensive zone. They're like, "I can't dump the puck." They'd turn around. They'd skate with the puck. They'd make a pass. They'd keep possession. And
Mm-hmm.
then once everybody was out, they'd re-enter as a unit. And you'd
Mm.
see a lot more scoring opportunities, a lot more puck touches. And like that's just one example of how changing the rules
Yeah.
created an environment where skill could be developed instead of just playing into the same old patterns.
Right. Oh, that's dope. Yeah. So
It's very
that's,
cool to see.
yeah, like that's I mean, my first jiu-jitsu coach, Dave Camarillo, says rules dictate behavior. This was 12 years ago,
Yeah.
and before any of this, like that was back when judo um outlawed touching the legs,
Huh?
right? So whatever little rules that you would think it maybe not a big deal, maybe it is a big deal, like that kind of, there's like downstream consequences for
Yeah.
all that.
100%.
So yeah, that
100%.
makes sense that you want, like, the metric for hockey is puck on stick time. Otherwise it's like, what are we doing
We're
here?
just
Like
skating
what?
around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
or you're playing defense, and
Mm.
you got to get good at defense. But like, in order to win, you have to score goals. And to score goals, you got to be skilled with the puck.
Right. Yeah. And that's similar to jiu-jitsu where it's like you want to spend like there's different rules of thumb about this, but like there's three different roles. It's rolling with people who are better than you,
Hmm.
people who are about equal, rolling people who are less skilled than you. And Danaher, Joe Rogan are like, hey, you want to like 80% of your roles should be with less skilled people so you can work on your offense
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So
no,
I
100%.
imagine like, do you guys play, I guess, what are the types of games or CLA stuff did you guys do in
Uh,
hockey?
oh man. Sometimes we would have them play opposite handed, like just
Mm,
to get their brains kind of going.
interesting.
Which is a challenge. I mean, imagine,
Like
you've written
you
right-handed the
play,
whole time. Yeah, you play.
yeah, you
Yeah,
play with the
yeah, yeah.
other
You
stick.
play with the opposite side.
Jeez.
We would, but more commonly, like we would play. So say like if you wanted to get good at passing,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's like the skill that you're trying to build. You might play. You don't even need goalies for this one. You could
Mm-hmm.
just play. You could take a group of kids, put them in the corner, and say, okay, here are your boundaries. You got to stay on this quarter of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to score, you've got to connect 3 passes between your teammates to score a point, right? And
Gotcha.
every time you score
Yeah.
a point, it goes back down to 0, and you got to like keep connecting passes.
Sure.
So now you've got kids looking to get open. You've got
Mm-hmm.
kids. So now they're building skating skills as well.
Right.
You've got kids communicating. So now you're talking about verbal skills while
Mm,
you got kids bouncing pucks off of walls around people or off the glass or, going over people to connect passes, all kinds of crazy stuff that people are figuring out in order to get the puck from you to your teammate without losing control of the puck.
right.
Right. So that might be
That's
an
cool.
example. Or, if you want to work on scoring. So we used to take both nets and put them, like bring them all the way to center ice and put them
Mm-hmm.
kind of facing each other,
Yeah.
very close, close to that circle.
Uh-huh.
And you'd stick, you'd have 3 players, kind of 1, 2, 3 in a triangle facing
Mm-hmm.
their offensive net,
Mm-hmm.
and you have another team in the exact same configuration on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, each player they have to stay in their boundary. So if you're in the middle of the circle,
Mm-hmm.
you can only go on your half of the circle. You
Mm-hmm.
can't exit the circle. You can't go over the center line.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for the other team, right? So what that creates is 2 3-on-1 scenarios. So if you have possession of the puck,
Mm-hmm.
it's you 3 versus the one person in the middle. And
Mm,
now, plus the goalie, obviously.
right. Yeah.
And so now you're looking to get goalies out of position. You're looking to, force that middle player to chase pucks around where
Mm-hmm.
they're, unable to do it. So you create, small side or offset games where,
Yeah.
there's, each, the team possessing the puck has a higher chance of scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
Makes sense.
there's, I mean, as you know, the possibilities are endless, right? You can get very creative with some of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
in order to force the behavior you're looking for, and it doesn't, without me having to say, put your stick here, turn this way,
Right.
shoot,
Yeah.
like
This is the proper way to
right,
slap shot or wrist shot
right.
or
I don't
whatever.
care how
Right.
you do it, just get it in the
Yeah.
net.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yep,
Yeah.
yep,
That's
100%.
awesome. Sweet. No, that's great. So you were, sorry, I think in the very beginning when you were discussing like your hockey experience, you're a little bit cut off. So I think the recording will still go through, but if you answer this,
Yeah.
that's fine. How did you get from hockey coach to like strength and conditioning?
Okay. So when I was growing up playing, I was never the most skilled kid on the ice. I
Mm-hmm.
started playing hockey late. I was 12 when I started. Most
Mm.
of my teammates in college started when they were 3 or 4. So
Oh, geez.
I was
Okay.
behind,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
I didn't find it until later in life. And
Yeah.
so I had to do something to separate myself
Mm-hmm.
and not just catch up, but if I wanted to make it to the next level, I
Be
had to,
competitive. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I had to do something. And so I found the gym and I fell in love with the gym. I
Mm-hmm.
hired a trainer. My parents were very supportive and helped me hire a trainer as young as I think 14 years old. And,
Mm.
I started working with her, and then that led to, just different opportunities as I grew and, kind of ascended in the sport,
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate to have a lot of really, really good strength coaches. And that really fostered my love for the weight room. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, well, if I don't play professionally and I don't coach professionally, then
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be in the gym. That's where I feel at home. It's it's where I grew up,
Yeah.
ultimately, not
Sure.
just in the locker room or on the ice, but in the weight room. And it's where I learned a lot about myself. And it I've seen how powerful that was for me.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, for better or worse, COVID happened.
Mm.
And at that time, I was kind of burnt out. I was on the ice 6, 7, 8 hours a day. My
Oh,
feet
geez.
were, it was messed up. And I didn't love the situation I was in. I'll leave that at that. But
Yeah.
COVID happened, rinks shut down. I found myself uh, teaching private lessons on Zoom. If you can imagine, private hockey lessons on Zoom.
Wow.
There's only so much you can do with
Right.
a kid, a stick, a couple pucks, and a net, and maybe you're in their garage. Sometimes
Uh,
you're in their own house.
oh, wow.
And I'm like, how am I going to make this valuable? Like, I need to
Mm-hmm.
find a way to provide value for these people. They've been very kind enough to help keep me employed
Yeah.
while all of this is going on. And
Sure.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I got to find a way to make this like go above and beyond and make this
Mm-hmm.
worth their time.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what happened was I would, work 15, 20 minutes of skill stuff in
Mm-hmm.
hockey skill. And then the last, you know, 10, 15 minutes, I would start to pepper in things that I had picked up from a strength and conditioning perspective,
Mm.
whether that was strength or balance or, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
something to make this work. And after a couple months, I start hearing things like, I couldn't do this before, but now I can. And I was like,
Mm.
bingo, okay,
Yeah.
there's something here. I could do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Right.
And I was fortunate that my then girlfriend, now wife, her roommate, she was a trainer. She kind of helped get me squared away as far as certifications go. She's like, if you want to do this, this is how you go about it.
Mm-hmm.
So she pushed me in the right direction. I got certified. I started working remotely with one of my former players who was trying to play in college.
Mm-hmm.
That led to, working remotely with another player.
Nice.
Things started to open up a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
I started renting space out of a gym nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Working with 2 people became 4, 4 became 8. Next thing you
Nice.
know, like I needed more space.
Mm-hmm.
We moved out of there and into well, before we moved, I realized that building my business around hockey players is probably not the wisest decision because
Mm-hmm.
they come back for 4 months and then they leave. They go to their
Mm.
respective teams, wherever
Yeah.
that is.
Right.
And I very quickly realized that I needed a more sustainable business model.
Sure.
So I was
Right.
like, well, who's around 100% of the time, doesn't have an off season, complains about back, knee, and shoulder pain all the time. And at that point, I had been in jiu-jitsu for 3 or 4 years, and I was a bona fide addict, and it just hit me, and I was like, duh, like all
Right.
my friends,
Yeah.
I want to work with, I want to help them.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so I started working with a couple of guys there in my class, and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I'm like, what, this is big enough that I should probably make it kind of our main offering.
Mm-hmm.
And now, since moving out of that spot, we moved into we had a little 600 square foot strip it had to have been over 1 million square foot warehouse, massive warehouse
Oh, wow.
that was just legal enough during COVID.
Right.
It was, if somebody had come in there and there were all kinds of businesses running out of there, and if somebody came in, the building manager would have had to deal with it. It wasn't
Yeah.
us, the little small businesses that were going to have to
Right.
answer. And
Uh-huh.
fortunately, nothing happened. But
Yeah.
that was kind of how we made it work. And then
Yeah.
from there, I realized that if we were going to keep growing, I needed to scale. I needed to hire another coach. And
Mm-hmm.
if I was going to do that, we couldn't do that in a 600 square foot spot. So
Sure.
through a series of fortuitous bounces, found myself, and now we're in a 2,400 square foot standalone spot near downtown San Jose.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say probably 90% of our members are jiu-jitsu athletes.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so fun.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and because you're working with athletes, they they genuinely care about getting better, and
yeah.
like it's not just like gen pop where they're training just to not die
Hmm.
or like just because their doctor told them to or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. These people want to get better at jiu-jitsu, and they know that it's a rough sport, and one where people are trying to snap your limbs off, and if you don't do something about it, then it's going to come back to bite you. So
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is a very like I've I've talked to different people about this, and it's an incomplete martial art. Like
Mm.
we're taught how to break each other, but not how to heal each other or how to
Okay. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
reinvigorate or like
Uh-huh.
strengthen each other, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like we have to have some other practice. Like when you do jujitsu, you're inadvertently signing up for strength and conditioning at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause-
100%.
yeah,
You're totally right.
right. So I guess how so I mean, you like you said, it's pretty fundamental, like the different movement patterns to load and um, kind of build up your skills around that. What are what's like the I guess in terms of training, do you see like crossover between grappling and lifting weights? Like what how like analogies do you see
Um,
between those two?
you know, so our the approach that we take when we program for people is
Yeah.
the concurrent training model. So
Mm-hmm.
we train power, speed, strength,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, upper body, lower body. We full body splits every time for the
Yeah.
most part. If somebody's
Yeah.
like back to back Friday, Saturday, we might
Mm-hmm.
change things up a little bit. But
Sure.
in general, concurrent training model is the way to go, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Yeah.
The reason I think that is because you don't get to choose which quality you're going to express or need
Mm-hmm.
to express in any given role, right?
Mm,
You
yeah.
could be rolling with somebody who's super athletic and you're going to have to chase them down. It's going to be all scrambles. That's
Right.
going to require a different skill set
Mm-hmm.
than, the slow, grindy, hold a position for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
very, methodical
Sure.
role, right? And so we want to try to train as many of those qualities as we can every single session so
Mm,
that when it comes to the mats, you're
mm-hmm.
able to express whatever it is you need to express.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And at the same time, like, yeah, for jujitsu, it's not like we want to only train stand up or
Mm-hmm.
only train guard passing
Yeah.
because at some point you're going to get pinned. At
Yeah.
some point you're going to get caught in a submission. You need to work the defenses or you need to work or the usual opposite case is like if you're a guard player, you got to work some amount of standing because
Yes.
all matches start standing. Even if you're just going to pull guard, like you want to like attach yourself somehow
Yeah.
and pull, or
Yep.
maybe you don't get to choose the situation dictates in say like ADCC, you can't guard pull in like the last half of the match or whatever. So you need some kind of takedown. So yeah, same thing with your strength train qualities is like you need all those things have a well-rounded game and a well-rounded like physical body
Yeah.
capable of those different things.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
That's dope. Cool. Um, I guess yeah. What's your biggest like takeaway from jujitsu? Is it since you've started? Like, what's the biggest thing that you've gotten from it?
Be comfortable being in uncomfortable positions.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not the first time you've heard that, but
Right.
like,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, that's being comfortable, being uncomfortable is, I think, such an important quality for
Mm-hmm.
life
Sure.
because for most of us, life isn't easy. And at some point, things are going to turn in a weird way that are going to feel weird and aren't going
Mm-hmm.
to be fun. And being able to, you know, for lack of a better term, look down the barrel and be calm
Mm-hmm.
is really, really that's a skill that's so underrated, I think, and one that I think you have to build in order to progress in jujitsu. Because if you don't, you just won't make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if you're not comfortable with somebody's like sweaty chest, like all in your
Yeah,
face, like
Yeah.
you're where you're going to be like for the first 6 months at least of your
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu career. Yeah, you're not going to make it like
Yeah.
if you don't get comfortable, like, okay, what's like the little spot that I can breathe out of?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I can start advancing my position that way and
Yeah.
like start getting being in the pocket there,
Yeah.
so to
Yeah.
speak.
And I mean, I'm sure people listening have all experienced something like that in life where you're just like,
Yeah.
where do I go from here? And if you're able to sit there and think your way through it,
Hmm.
in if jujitsu is a microcosm of life, if you're able to think through that, sweaty rash guard in your face and find your way out, then you can do that, when, challenges arise in, later in life. So
For sure. Yeah. I imagine that, yeah, you growing from like going from hockey trainer to strength and conditioning trainer and growing your jit, like your,
mm-hmm,
all that
100%.
stuff is risky. And like
Yeah.
like you're signing leases or
Yep.
signing rent, all that kind of stuff. Like that's, taking
Yeah.
on risk, and
Yeah.
you had to be a little bit like you had a fire under your ass to like now you have overhead that you have
Yeah.
to deal with or whatnot.
On
So
the topic of risk,
yeah.
when we signed the lease in our current space, the business was not old enough to qualify for an SBA loan. Like
Oh
I
shit.
so I needed to find money to
Hmm.
outfit the place. I mean, we had some of the equipment, but the
Yeah.
floor alone was 20 grand.
Oh wow.
Like
Oh
the
geez.
floor
Yeah.
was 20
Yeah.
grand. So
Uh-huh.
like just to put that into perspective, 20 grand I didn't have. And
Yeah.
so,
Right.
I'm applying for these loans and I keep getting, they keep coming back and saying, you got to have like, it's got to be at least 3 years old or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the stipulations, but in any case, we didn't qualify.
Hmm.
So I bet on myself and I took out like, I think it was 0% APR credit cards with varying terms, 12,
Dang.
14, and 18 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just got to work to grow this thing fast enough
Hmm.
to pay these off
Yeah.
before the interest hits. And we did
Dang.
it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I hadn't spent as much time under a sweaty rash guard trying to get out,
Right.
in previous bouts. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a super valuable lesson, I think.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And that's the biggest. I don't know. Like I've been listening to a lot of Hormozy because I'm using his school platform and all that, and like he's like all rah rah and like, yeah, the biggest investment you can make is into yourself. Is
Mm-hmm.
like you are the end product of like the work works on you more than you work on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that you're developing the qualities that are valuable that to someone else. Like you're like without you being resilient, you wouldn't be able to serve your
Yes.
community now.
Yeah.
If you weren't under sweaty rash guards for however long, like 8 years
Yeah.
or however long you were at that point,
Yeah. Yeah.
there, yeah, maybe we wouldn't be talking today or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, jujitsu is, I wouldn't go so far to say is like life change. Like jujitsu saved my life or whatever. People
Yeah.
kind of throw that around.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's making jujitsu a little bit too important, but it definitely makes life better, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. I mean, I can see, where I guess another area that I find just massive benefit from is like, I know that meditation is good for you. All of the research supports this, and
Right.
people should stop and slow down and be in the moment. Nothing puts me more in the moment
Hmm.
than a high spirited role,
Oh
right?
yeah,
You
exactly.
you can't possibly be anywhere else
Sure.
mentally
Yep.
than that exact moment and that exact place, and that's something that I think is really valuable about the sport. There you can play other sports, but like in baseball, there's time in between each play where you
Yeah.
could theoretically zone out.
Yeah.
You can't
Right.
zone out in jiu-jitsu. You
No.
just, it doesn't work.
Right.
So
Or the puck is away from
right.
you in hockey and it's like
Yeah.
you're on defense and it's like, okay, I'm not really doing anything right now
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there are maybe fewer chances to do it in hockey because it's so
Sure.
fast,
Yeah, sure.
but
Yeah.
nonetheless, people do space. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've
Right.
seen it 1,000 times.
Uh-huh.
I've coached kids. I've seen them
Right.
space all the time.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, this is my meditation, so to speak.
Sure.
There's because there's nothing else I can do in that
Hmm.
moment than just kind of be with myself and figure out the problem.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome, Matt. Appreciate you coming on. Do you want to plug anything? Uh,
Yeah, I
Shout
mean,
out.
yeah, if anybody listening is interested in strength and conditioning for grapplers, if you're in the Bay Area, come see us. Our website's victorysubmissionstrength.com. You can find us on Instagram at victorysubmissionstrength. If you are not in the Bay Area, we've got a ton of online programs. We've got general strength. We've got a fight camp that's 8 weeks that you can get. We've got mobility programs that are targeted toward, whether it's shoulders, hips, upper, lower
Hmm.
extremities, whatever. All of those you can find on both of our website and the link in our bio on our Instagram. You can follow us on Victory Submission Grappling on Instagram. That's the new spot. We'll be posting some of the games that we're playing, and trying to help move the community forward. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for reaching out. This is a
Thanks
lot
so
of
much for
fun.
having me,
Yeah.
Mike. That was a blast.
Yeah. Awesome. Sweet. All right. I'll see you guys next time.